Iconic filmmaker Tom Hanks found himself stranded when his car broke down in a remote location. Frustration sets in not until a poor old mechanic approached and offered to fix his car. No questions, no price. He had no idea the man was Tom Hanks. But what happened after that act of kindness? No one saw it coming. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned because this story will touch your heart. The morning air was crisp with a promise of urgency. Tom Hanks, dressed in a tailored charcoal gray suit and a matching wool overcoat and polished leather shoes, exhaled sharply as he glanced at his watch for the third time in 2 minutes. He had barely taken a sip from his coffee when his phone rang. It was his manager, her voice laced with pressure. "Tom, the client just threw in some new requirements. We need to walk you through everything before the meeting. So, get there an hour earlier if you can." Tom Hanks stepped into his car with a familiar mixture of focus and calm, a little bit different from the usual composure. He glanced at the time once more. No wiggle room. He started the car, already rehearsing key points in his head, but the pressure was palpable. It was a crucial meeting for a film project with massive stakes, and every second suddenly mattered more than ever. This project wasn't just another role, it was a legacy film, a passion project years in the making. His residence street bustled with its usual symphony. Tom maneuvered his car through the morning traffic, mentally ticking off the steps for the presentation ahead. Tom had been on the road for nearly 15 minutes, glancing often at the time on his dashboard and calculating every second lost to red lights and slow drivers. His mind buzzed with checklists, scenes, scripts, stakeholder names. He took a left off the busy boulevard, cutting through a quieter route he rarely used. Just a minute later, he took a second right onto a less-traveled residential street, lined with modest homes and trees shedding the last of their autumn leaves. He barely noticed the name of the street, and something about it felt oddly still, like the world had hit pause. It was supposed to be a shortcut, a path that shaved 10 minutes off his commute, but 10 minutes would soon feel like an eternity. Just as he straightened the wheel and settled into a smoother cruise, he gripped the steering wheel a little tighter, pressing his foot to the gas. Then, bam! The engine hiccuped and the car sputtered. A cough beneath the hood. A few warning lights blinked on the dashboard. And then, silence. It was this quiet, unassuming street, born of 2 quick turns, that fate had chosen for his car to give up, and for something far more meaningful to begin. Number, not now. Tom muttered under his breath. Tom had steered to the side of the street before the car stopped functioning. The street he had broken down on was quiet. Too quiet. It wasn't the kind of place you'd expect a lot of foot traffic or quick help. Trees lined with sidewalks, and behind them, scattered homes dotted across plain fields. It was the kind of neighborhood that felt frozen in time. He turned the key to start the car again. Nothing. He turned once more. Still nothing. A beat of silence followed. He sat in the car for a moment, staring through the windshield, frustration beginning to rise. "Great," he muttered under his breath, pulling out his phone to call roadside assistance. Tom got out of the car, pacing as he dialed roadside assistance. Then his manager. Then his assistant. Each call brought the same message. Help was on its way, but it wouldn't arrive for at least 58 minutes. He ran a hand through his hair, standing next to the car, shoulders tense and mind racing. A few minutes passed. He looked around again. And then, from a small, aged porch across the street, a door creaked open. An elderly man slowly stepped out, stooped slightly, his steps steady yet worn. His overalls were stained from years of labor, and his hands were calloused, etched with the evidence of decades spent fixing things most people had long given up on. His eyes, however, were still sharp, curious, compassionate. He watched Tom for a moment, then stepped down from his porch, a small rag slung over one shoulder. "Need some help there, son?" he called out. Tom looked up, surprised. The man's voice was warm and genuine. The old man got closer and narrowed his eyes slightly. "You look familiar. TV, maybe?" Tom half smiled. "Yeah, maybe." I used to watch a lot of movies with my grandkids, the man added with a light chuckle. But I can't remember names like I used to. That's life. Tom, still weary but softened by the man's gentle tone, replied, I appreciate the offer, sir. I called for help, but it's just taking forever. The man stepped beside the car without touching it. Mind if I take a look? I might be able to fix it before the help you called even gets here. Tom paused. The man didn't look like much. Gray stubble, faded work boots, a body that had clearly been through a lot. But there was something in his voice that carried both kindness and confidence. Tom nodded. All right, let's give it a try. And with that, the story began. Not just about a car, but about two very different lives about to collide in the most unexpected way. The moment the old man latched the tow cable to Tom's car and began pulling it down the narrow street, Tom couldn't help but notice the faded lettering on the mechanic's jumpsuit. J. Warren Auto Repairs. The letters had entirely peeled off that what was left was the mark of their engravings. They pulled up to a small, time-worn structure tucked beside an equally modest house. Tools hung from the walls, some modern, many not. The floor was stained with grease, but everything had its place. It was humble, but it was home. Tom stepped out, adjusting his blazer, watching the man set up to work without delay. You've got quite the setup here, Tom remarked, eyeing the crowded workspace. The old man chuckled. She's not much, but she's kept me busy for years. As he opened the hood and leaned into the engine, Tom's curiosity got the better of him. Can I ask something? Tom began. The old man glanced up from beneath the hood, his wrinkled hands still gripping a wrench. A gentle smile tugged at the corner of his lips. Sure, he said, tightening a bolt before straightening up slowly. If it's about the car, I'll give you the answer. If it's about life, I'll try my best. He chuckled softly. But either way, go ahead. I've lived long enough to know every question has its weight. Tom paused, watching the old man shuffle between a tool cabinet and the open hood of the car. Grease stained the man's shirt and sweat glistened on his brow, yet his hands moved with an almost peaceful confidence. There was something admirable, even poetic about the way he worked. Like this wasn't just a job. It was a lifeline. Tom folded his arms, his voice quieter now, almost reverent. You move like someone who's been doing this forever, he said. The old man looked up, gave a small nod, and kept working. Tom hesitated, then asked softly, Why are you still doing this? At your age? The old man paused, wiped his hands on an old cloth, and turned to face him. There was no bitterness in his voice, just quiet resilience. I lost my daughter and her husband in a plane crash 5 years ago. Left me with 2 grandkids and a whole lot of bills, he said. I didn't plan to keep working this long, but when you've got little ones who look at you like you're their whole world, you just keep going. Tom's expression relaxed. The casual curiosity that had laced his question faded, replaced by a quiet awe. He looked at the old man not just as someone fixing his car, but as a figure of resilience. Someone still carrying heavy weights long after most would have put them down. He glanced around the small garage, the rusted tool chests, the faded photos pinned to the walls, the well-worn workbench, and something in his chest tightened. His jaw clenched slightly as he blinked away the weight settling behind his eyes. Tom nodded slowly. That's incredible. The old man gave a tired smile, wiped his hands on a cloth, and let out a breath. Well, the truth is, I'm still behind on mortgage payments, the man continued. And tuition's no joke these days, but they're good kids, smart, deserve a chance. So I grease up these old bones and keep turning wrenches. Tom didn't know what to say. The story hit him like a slow-moving freight train, steady, powerful, and impossible to ignore. The mechanic turned back to the engine and worked with remarkable focus. Within 20 minutes, he shut the hood with a satisfied thump. She'll run smoothly now. Just a misfire. Timing was off, he said, wiping sweat from his brow. Tom pulled out his wallet. Let me pay you for your time, good sir. The old man raised his hand. No need. I didn't help you for money. You looked like you needed help, and that's all I saw. Tom froze for a moment. A man with so little, giving so much. Leave a comment if you believe kindness is priceless. But what the old man didn't know was that this stranger he just helped wasn't just anyone. And by the next day, everything will change. After the repair, Tom Hanks stood at the edge of the old mechanic's driveway, gripping his car keys with a quiet mix of gratitude and reflection. He stood beside his running vehicle, the faint scent of engine grease still lingering in the cool afternoon air. He turned to the old mechanic, a man whose weathered hands had just worked quiet magic. Before I leave, Tom reached into his coat and pulled out a small notepad, scribbling something. If it's all right, I'd like to keep in touch. The old man gave a humble nod, his hands still stained with oil, completely unaware that his simple act of kindness had sparked something far bigger. Thank you again, Tom said, his voice gentle. You just saved my day. With that, he climbed into the car and rolled away, the gravel crunching beneath his tires. In his rearview mirror, he caught one last glimpse of the old man standing at the edge of his modest driveway, framed by rusted tools and a garage that had seen decades of wear. Tom drove off, glancing once in the rearview mirror at the shrinking silhouette of the small garage behind him. As Tom neared the meeting venue, the skyline came into view, tall, sharp, and urgent. Traffic flowed like a restless river, but his thoughts kept drifting back to that tiny garage and the man who had asked for nothing in return for his kindness. Tom arrived at the production studio with exactly 30 minutes to spare before the high-stakes pitch meeting. His manager met him at the entrance, eyebrows raised. You made it, she said, handing Tom a folder. Client's been calling. They've added a list of last-minute revisions. They moved swiftly. Pages turned, notes scribbled, ideas reshaped. When the client walked in, Tom was sharp, composed, and fully ready. The presentation unfolded like a well-rehearsed script, smooth, compelling, and decisive. The client clapped his hands together. Brilliant, Tom. Let's greenlight this. But even in that boardroom after his presentation, beneath the polished conversation and high-stakes dialogue, Tom Hanks kept thinking about that man, the garage, and the weary kindness in his eyes. Meanwhile, back at the poor old man's residence, the old mechanic's world wasn't as hopeful as that of Tom Hanks. As dusk settled over the old man's house, orange light spilled across the cracked pavement of his yard. He sat on his creaky porch chair, his old dog napping at his feet. His bones ached. The smell of oil clung to his skin. But what troubled him wasn't the day's work. It was the letter in his back pocket, the previous notice of mortgage payment he was yet to clear. Just then, a black sedan rolled up the driveway. Out stepped a sharply dressed man carrying a briefcase. Mr. Warren? The man asked. Yes, sir, the old mechanic replied, standing slowly. I'm from the mortgage office. I'm afraid we have to deliver this personally. He handed over a folder. This is your final notice. The property will be reviewed for foreclosure by Friday. The old man's heart sank. He pleaded, Please, just a bit more time. I'm doing all I can. I just need more time. I'm working every day, sir. I've got grandkids. This is all we have. But the man only shook his head. I'm sorry. The deadline stands. He left without another word. The old man stood motionless, the folder clutched in his trembling hand. Behind him, the laughter of his grandchildren echoed as they played inside. He stepped back into the house, forcing a smile as the kids rushed to greet him. But his eyes told another story. Later that evening, the grandkids invited him to play a board game. He declined. He sat in silence at the kitchen table, watching them from afar. The fear of losing the home they all shared weighed heavy on his chest. To him, it felt like hope was slipping through his fingers. But what he didn't know was that the next morning, everything would change. He thought it was over, that no one would be able to help him. But someone was ready to offer him help in return for his kindness. Someone who remembered the smell of the oil, the strength in his silence, and the kindness he gave away like it cost nothing. Sometimes the smallest gestures spark the biggest miracles, and morning was about to knock on his door with something he never imagined. If you believe kindness always finds its way back, share this video and stay with us because the best part of this story is just ahead. What happens next will leave your heart full. The morning sun painted soft amber streaks across the quiet neighborhood as the old man sat on his front porch, a chipped mug of coffee warming his calloused hands. His back hunched a little more than usual, and his eyes, once bright with grit, seemed clouded with the weight of the notice he received the day before. He hadn't slept well. All night, thoughts of his grandkids losing their home haunted him. The laughter of his little ones the evening before felt like a cruel reminder of what he might soon lose. The sun had barely broken over the rooftops when the sound of tires crunching gently on gravel pulled the old mechanic from his half-empty cup of morning coffee. He looked up from his weathered chair on the veranda, squinting against the light. A sleek black SUV rolled to a halt at the foot of his driveway, the old man's brows furrowed. Out stepped Tom Hanks, dressed in a calm, casual dress. Behind him, two men in suits, a woman holding a thick portfolio, and another man wearing a construction badge. The old man blinked, confused, still half caught in yesterday's grief. Tom approached with a warm smile and a leather folder tucked beneath his arm. "Good morning," Tom said, extending his hand. The old man rose slowly. "Back already?" he asked, voice shaky. Tom nodded. "Told you I'd keep in touch." The old man's eyes drifted to the people standing behind Tom, to the folder, to the small truck parked nearby bearing the logo of a construction company. Tom walked closer, placing the folder on the wooden porch rail. "I couldn't stop thinking about our conversation yesterday. You helped me when you didn't have to. Let me return the favor." "Your mortgage," he said softly. "Paid in full." The old man stared at the papers like they were written in another language. Tom continued. "Your grandchildren? Their education from here through college is covered." The old man's lips parted slightly, trembling. "There's more," Tom said, motioning toward the workers. "This house? It's yours forever now, but we're giving it some updates. And that garage of yours?" He turned, gesturing to the corner where the old tin-roofed shack stood. "It will be rebuilt, outfitted, and we've hired 2 assistants to work with you. No more lifting engines by yourself." The old man couldn't speak. He staggered back a step, stunned. His hands trembled as he gripped the porch rail for support. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Tears filled his eyes. He leaned slowly toward Tom, taking it all in, the kindness, the generosity, the impossibility of it all. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, he asked the question stuck in his throat. "Why me? Why me?" he whispered, his voice cracking with disbelief. "Why would someone like you do all this?" Tom didn't hesitate. He reached out, placing a steady hand on his shoulder. His voice was soft, but unwavering. "Because people like you remind the world what real goodness looks like. You helped a stranger with no questions asked. You didn't just fix a car. You reminded me that the world still contained kind-hearted persons like you." The old man wept, not from sadness, but from the release of years of quiet pain finally met with unexpected grace. Behind him, his 2 grandkids ran out the front door, barefoot, carrying paper airplanes. They stopped short when they saw the crowd, then lit up when they recognized Tom. "Is he a movie star?" one of them asked. "No," the old man whispered, pulling them close. "He's an angel in disguise." The old man wiped his face finally. The 2 men stood in silence, not needing words, just that moment, full of grace, full of power. Just then, one of the grandkids tugged gently at the old man's coat, eyes wide with excitement. "Grandpa!" he called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. "He's not just an angel in disguise. That's Tom Hanks, the movie star!" The other grandkid chimed in, grinning from ear to ear. "Yeah, he's in the movie we watched last weekend, remember? With talking volleyball." The old man let out a soft, breathless laugh as he wiped the tears from his cheeks. "A movie star, huh?" he muttered, trying to steady himself. He looked at Tom, shaking his head in disbelief. "Well, all this time I thought I'd seen your face somewhere before. Just wasn't sure if it was the news, a dream, or maybe a memory from the television." One of the kids suddenly bolted back into the house and returned seconds later, holding a DVD case in both hands. On it, in bold letters, was the title of one of Tom's iconic films, with Tom's face smiling from the cover. "See, Grandpa," the boy said, holding it up like it was treasure. "That's him!" The old man took the case in trembling hands, staring at the cover for a long moment before looking back up at Tom with teary eyes. "I can't believe it," he whispered. "Not just any man. You're that Tom Hanks, and yet you came back here. For us." Tom chuckled softly, his own eyes glinting with emotion. Sometimes the biggest roles we play don't need a camera. Then he knelt to the kids' level and winked. "And for being so sharp. How would you two like to be in my next movie?" The kids screamed with joy, jumping up and down as the old man stood in stunned silence, overcome with gratitude and wonder. In that quiet little front yard, between a once broken car and now healed hearts, lives were changed not by fame or fortune, but by kindness and the ripple it created. They say kindness is its own reward, but sometimes kindness finds its way back, with interest. Sometimes real heroes wear grease-stained gloves and love with quiet strength. Share this story to remind others that one small act of good can change someone's world forever. The old man stood there with his grandkids wrapped around him, the DVD still in his hand, his heart heavier than ever, but not with sorrow, with something else. Hope. Hope that kindness still mattered. Hope that ordinary people still have an extraordinary impact. If this story touched you in some way, like and share the video with your friends. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more unique stories like this.